Good evening. This is The Point of View. We're live on City TV this and every Monday and Wednesday at 9 p.m. Here at City TV on The Point of View, we bring the right guests, we ask them relevant questions, and we come up with some real insights. My name is Bernard Avle. Tonight we find out where the Ghana Cedi is, because in April 2017, the Vice President declared that he had jailed the Cedi from falling, giving the keys to the IGP. It appears the Cedi is on a jailbreak after opening 2017 at 4.1 to the dollar. It's now inching dangerously closely to 5 cedis to $1. Tonight we find out where the keys are, and we'll discuss how to rein in the renegade Ghana Cedi. It's an interactive show. Hashtag The Point of View at Point of View GH. Keep watching. So tonight we'll be asking a couple of questions. The Vice President has been quite profound in his analysis of the economy. He says, if your fundamentals are weak, the Cedi or the exchange rate will expose you. So are we being exposed, or are we becoming too cautious too soon? Let's introduce our guest for tonight. He is the spokesperson of the Vice President. He's an economist himself. He's called Dr. Gideon Boaku. Doc, good evening. Welcome to The Point of View.
Good evening, Bernard. You're welcome.
Thank you. It's great to have you. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm Fantastic. So good. So doing well.
Super. I want to remind you of some of the things Dr. Bawumia has been saying in the past 8 years. Here's a quick summary of some of his major lectures. And a lot of the lectures have been on the economy and on the currency.
This was a 59% increase in 8 years. Even in the face of global economic and financial crisis in 2007 and 2008, high $147 a barrel, economic growth, as I said, rose to 9.1% in 2008. However, notwithstanding the oil discovery, GDP has increased from $28.5 billion in 2008 to a projected $40 billion in 2016, which is a 40% increase in 8 years. But you will see what is interesting about this data is that MPP increased GDP by 459%, NDC increased it by 40%, but when you look at the tenure of President Mahama, between 2012 and 2016, Ghana's GDP has shrunk by 5%. So, this is Mahama as president, and this is the NDC. Mr. Chairman, under the NDC, GDP per capita, that is the income
So that was the 2016 lecture of Dr. Bawumia. There's another one that talks a lot more about some of his analysis of the economy. We'll show that one later as the program goes on. But I recall that in 2016 September, at the time he gave this lecture, the exchange rate was 3.85 Ghana cedis to the US dollar. 3.85 Ghana cedis. So this is September 2016. We are in September 2018, 2 years down the line. We could say there's been a full 1 cedi, not talking about percentages, because now it's 4.7. In fact, if you go to the forex market, it's 4.9. It's literally 5. So, what's going on?
Thank you very much, Bernard, and good evening to our viewers. I'm happy you played the Vice President's video to indicate some of the things that he talked about in opposition. the interesting and good thing is that this vice president is not somebody who runs away from his shadows. And so if we have time to analyze the videos you are playing out or you want to play out, you will notice, if you read between the lines, that the things he talked about, most of them, the administration has been able to deal with them. And there are quite a good number of them that administration has been able to improve upon. Of course, the government still has 8 years. And so there are some of them.
You still have 8 years? How do you know you have 8 years?
4 years.
You've spent 2 years already. You have
4
2 years.
And so there are still opportunities to work out things. You made mention of the September figure for 2016.
Yeah.
What is instructive to note is that whatever figure you mention in 2016, apart from the end of 2016 figure, may be of less relevance in this particular context, because whatever performance this government should have today is under the influence of the end year 2016 performance and not January or May or September performance in 2016. And so in 2016, maybe January, the rate would have been lower. If you take that and say that you're comparing it to present situation, therefore there has been a 1 cedi addition, you may be getting the context.
So let me show you 2017 and 2018, which is on the screen now. So this is since you took over. So in February of 2017, the currency actually appreciated and then depreciated from March and depreciated, easing itself to 4.8 depreciation December 2017. And then, of course, the depreciation in 2018 was much slower. In fact, there was an appreciation in February, an appreciation in March slightly, and then depreciation started again. And as of August 2017, the depreciation was 6.7%. So, in fact, if you, and this is what is bringing us closer to the 5 now. So, it appears February, things start well. And then by the time you get into May, June, July, things go south, which is what we are seeing from both 2017 and 2018. So it looks like you are not able to hold on to any progress you make. And it's a similar challenge to the previous administration.
Yeah, you know, it is important to note that Ghana is not running a fixed exchange rate regime. So the regime that we run is the managed float, where the currency is allowed to float. But of course, the central bank has some influence along the line, and so they try to manage the situation. And so given that, the exchange rate has the tendency to either hike or drop, and so that is why you may see that kind of movement occur, which is normal with any floating exchange rate regime, any country that operates floating rate exchange regime. Now it is true that the economic fundamentals turnaround that were recorded in 2017 carried itself into 2018. And so for the first quarter of 2018, we saw some good stability relative to today. And even at some point in the first quarter of 2018, there was some appreciation of the local currency. In fact, in May, the depreciation was just around 0.16%. But of course, we witnessed what the Bank of Ghana had explained from the middle of May to June to July, that some global economic situations and also some internal factors brought some shocks to the local currency. And these shocks are shocks that intermittently every currency will experience. And so if you look at July and June, we had a surge in dollar on the back of the U.S. Fed policy rate, the hikes in U.S. interest rate and the strength of the U.S. currency against major trading currencies and including emerging market economies. Then again, the issues in the Turkish lira and all of that had some influence. Fast moving to August, we also saw the diplomatic impasse between U.S. and Turkey, and then those economic problems also caused some shocks to other emerging economies. And recently, in September and August, we have also seen some changes that has been attributed mainly to global contagion spillover as a result of the US currency also strengthening and then US interest rates also going up. What happens is that if the US instigate a policy that makes their currency strengthen and their interest rate go up, emerging economies suffer, because emerging economy assets are naturally not assets that investors will want to purchase. But given that where they consider to be safe havens have lower interest rates and they are not earning much on their interest rate, they may want to behave as contrarians and get into emerging markets and take the risk. But when they come to emerging economies and take the risk, and then they realize that the US interest rates are going higher because of the risk attached to emerging economies, they may want to
You are beginning to sound very much like the NDC. I have an NDC statement in front of me. This is actually in reaction to a reaction of Dr. Bawumia to President Mahama. On page 2, they start talking about the forex market stability in Ghana depending on exogenous factors such as commodity price shocks, uncertainty in the financial market, global financing conditions, energy shocks, and impact of crude oil imports, as well as other fiscal pressures. You are using exogenous factors to explain the depreciation, which is very similar to what they did.
That is one side of it, but of course, if you identify a particular cause or transmission channel, you don't need to cross your eyes over it because it is exogenous, and it is not just mainly due to exogenous factors. I'm not saying this on authority, but what experts have also seen through is that the recent hikes, marginal depreciation, may also be on the back of the recent developments that we have seen in our banking sector. It's very common for people to say that because of the banking sector restructuring, deposits are not going as they are, and therefore banks are not mobilizing so much. And others also believe that some people are even withdrawing their money from the banks as a result of panic. And if this is anything to go by, the question you should ask yourself is that the people who are withdrawing their monies from the banks as a result of panic, where are they putting the money? Most of them are just investing in dollars. Okay, so but
that's a manifestation of confidence in the economy. No, so if people prefer to save or store their money in dollars, they don't have confidence in the local currency.
No. You see,
and then I'm coming because you see your boss made it very clear that confidence is a very important part of this whole conversation. So on the exogenous side, you are saying fine, and then on the exogenous side, which is banking crisis, it says people are not confident in the economy.
Assuming that is true, what you are saying may not be wholly.
No, you are the one who is telling me that people are choosing to store their money in dollars, and that's a rational decision on the basis of how they perceive the local currency.
And you and I agree that the kind of banking situation that we have now, it's not the normal times. Okay, so it is not necessarily a loss of confidence in the economy, but we know that because of the banking restructuring, if you have economy that gets to a point where 5 banks have to be consolidated within a shortest possible time, that is not normal times, and that is why people may react towards that. It doesn't necessarily mean that they do not have trust in the economy. You can limit it to say there have been some loss of confidence in the banking sector, put it quote unquote. And so if that happens, it's not a normal thing that goes on every day. It's because of this situation. And so if that is anything to go by, and it is true that people are actually out of panic withdrawing their money from the bank, you need to trace to find out where they are putting their monies. They may not necessarily say that immediately, let me go and put that money into a certain productive business venture, because actually they wanted to save. And so by way of having a safe haven asset, they will say, okay, if it is that way, let me try to see if I can enter into the currency.
No problem. Let me show
all these may have effects, but what is important is that whether exogenous shocks or shocks that are within, because of the strong fundamentals we've been able to build, the rate of depreciation, which is normal for any economy that runs a managed floating exchange rate regime.
I'll come to the fundamentals. Excuse me, I want to show you
a message.
I like the fact that you brought in the fundamental point. I want to show you another quick one. And this is a summary of some of the points Dr. Bawumia has been making about the fundamentals. This is from 2012.
Engage in all the propaganda you want, but if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you. As the saying goes, when in doubt, observe the exchange rate. Mr. Chairman, when one examines the state of our public finances and the net international reserves position, it is difficult not to conclude that the ongoing Dumso problem may be more financial than technical. If the government does not take the right decisions and soon, then Ghana would likely have to approach the IMF for a bailout before the end of the year. Ghana's current status can thus best be described as a highly indebted, lower middle income country, a HIMIC country. Mr. Chairman, the untold story about the erratic gas supply from Nigeria is that Ghana owes Nigeria Gas $100 million. Nigeria Gas is therefore dragging its feet with regards to supply of gas. Zero central bank financing is certainly new territory for Ghana. Will this government be disciplined enough in an election year to abide by zero financing from the central bank? Most analysts are rightly skeptical.
Dr. Bawumia has made it easy for us to understand that irrespective of what happens with GDP or inflation or deficit, the exchange rate is the most important figure to look at.
Yeah.
And the reality is that for most Ghanaians, they started the year around 4.5. They are going to end the year at 5 to the dollar. Dr. Bawumia says the exchange rate is the most important thing to look at. Not even the GDP growth, not even inflation. So how do you how come we are having a depreciation that's taking us almost to 5 cedis to the dollar, and yet you are saying that that's not what it means? The exchange rate is exposing you.
It's very important that you don't just focus on the nominal figure 5 cedis, but ask yourself, where are you coming from? In any case, we haven't got into 5 cedis yet. The dollar interbank rate as of Friday, that's the data that we have available, was 4.75. Okay, I don't know what you have to say.
But the forex rate is 4.9.
I know.
And the forex rate is the rate
was quoting 4.89 today. So that's what I learned from EcoBank. So we haven't got into the 5, but that is not even the most important thing. You're talking about the fact that the Vice President are talking about weak fundamentals.
Yes.
Therefore, if your fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you.
So we judge the fundamentals by the rate. Yeah. That's what his point is.
Yeah, you should judge the fundamentals
by the exchange rate.
By the exchange rate.
Yes.
And you see, when we are talking about rates, it's not just one figure. And so you need to ask yourself.
Rate.
You need to ask yourself, what rate was the Vice President talking about then? And what is the rate now? And see whether or not you can compare the two fundamentals to see which one is stronger. As at the time,
he didn't say the depreciation rate, he said the exchange rate.
I'm coming. As at the time the Vice President was speaking, in 2014, 2015, in 2014, the Cedi had depreciated by 31%. If you want to see whether or not your fundamentals are stronger and supporting your exchange rate, you need to measure your rate of depreciation as against your inflation, which is the key factor, because the price of a currency mimics the behavior of asset prices.
Okay.
And therefore, people want to look at the inflation expectations to determine the price of any asset. Now, if ideally the rate or the level of depreciation of any currency, should reflect the rate of inflation of that particular economy. And therefore, if your rate of depreciation is higher than your rate of inflation, it means your fundamentals are absolutely weak. If you're able to achieve a rate of depreciation that is lower than your inflation, then it means your fundamentals are supported. As at the time, we're having inflation rate less than 30%, and still we're depreciating by 31%. You can't have a strong fundamental and at the same time have an exchange rate depreciation that is higher than your rate of inflation. Today, we have rate of inflation of around 9.8%, and we are depreciating at less than 7%, less than that particular inflation rate. It tells you that had it not been the strong fundamentals that are anchoring the exchange rate, we would be depreciating more than our inflation, because inflation is key in the determination of exchange rate. Because if you want to determine the exchange rate between a particular currency and the other, It is the inflation differential between the two countries in which that trade in that particular currency. And so that is why the Vice President said that you cannot be depreciating at 31%, higher and above your rate of inflation, and still think of strong fundamentals. It is because we have strong fundamentals today that our rate of depreciation first is slower, not as sharper as it used to be, and also lower than our rate of inflation.
That's a great point.
And if we want to
just a second. So you're saying that we should distinguish between the exchange rate simpliciter and the rate of depreciation of the currency to the dollar.
Absolutely. You can look at
good. That's great for academics, and that's very good for those who like economics. Let me read Guta to you. Guta in June 2018, and just a few seconds. The Ghana Union of Traders Association, Guta, is pleading with the government to put in the necessary measures to stabilize the cedi from further depreciation against the US dollar. According to the traders, the recent depreciation of the cedi against the dollar has eroded their profits since imports were made before the depreciation was recorded. Addressing the government team, President of Guta, Dr. Obeng Joseph, stated that government must adopt new measures to stop the cedi from further depreciating. This was in June. The depreciation rate in June I can give to you, and then I'll compare it with now. In June, the depreciation was 2.2. Right? He goes on. The government must adopt new measures to stop the cedi from further depreciation. According to him, the sharp depreciation recorded in May was not anticipated, causing serious trouble to traders who import goods worth thousands of dollars. Here's a quote. The recent depreciation has eroded all our gains because we did not see it coming. When the currency depreciates sharply like that, all that it means is that we are losing capital. It means that by the time you finish selling, you have to use more cedis to buy the same dollars to import less than you did in the previous month, he explained. So this is June. Okay. Then August 2018. Cedi depreciation, a major challenge for businesses. The free fall of the Ghana Cedi against major foreign currencies remains the biggest challenge for businesses in the country. This was revealed in the AGI barometer for second quarter 2018. According to the report, 48% of people surveyed said the high dollar rate affected their businesses greatly. So this is the exchange rate, not the depreciation. Other challenges for business include high taxes, high cost of power, high cost of credit, and access to credit. Then here's a quote. Speaking to City Business News, President of AGI, Dr. Yao Edu Jemfi, said the depreciation of the cedi will continue to drain businesses. He said, looking back into quarter one this year, we noted a number of positive signs, including good mix of macroeconomic indicators, fundamentals. But contrary to our expectations for quarter two, the cedi yielded to pressure from the world's major trading currencies, thereby impacting negatively on our businesses. So I've read two stories to you, one in May, one in August. One talks of the rate of depreciation, one talks of the exchange rate. And the truth is that businesses just look at how much they are paying for the dollar, and it's affecting them.
Absolutely. I agree with them. I mean, nobody should or would try to say that when a currency depreciates, it does not have real effect on businesses and you and I, consumers, as usual, because the businesses will pass on the increase, whether marginal or substantial, for us to pay. And so at all times, governments try to avoid this. But it is important for us to also note that, like I said, insofar as we do not run a fixed exchange rate regime, depreciation is something that will be difficult to say you won't see it at all. You try as much as possible to contain it. You try as much as possible to make sure you appreciate. But given the structure of our economy, okay, right from Georgesburg's time to Nkrumah to today, the structure of the economy is such that we are mostly net importers. And so the trade accounts issued will affect our local currency at all times. We also have huge exposures to foreign investors in the country, those who are doing retail industries, and so they repatriate monies outside. All of these will have effect on that. The causes of the exchange rate depreciation are varied, but government tries to mitigate them, and where government can have direct control. And then in addition to the external factors. So the depreciation, given our present circumstances as a country, Ghana, from birth, based on the structure of our economy, it will be hard for me or anybody to set out to say that there can never be depreciation at any point in time. But what is important for me is that given that we have an economy that has all these exposures that can cause the currency to fluctuate, it is important for us to live within the optimal band of our currency fluctuation and not exceed that. If we're able to do that, businesses will begin to see that although the currency is fluctuating, but the band is not huge, that is, the magnitude of depreciation should not be huge to affect them so hugely overnight, so that when they travel to China and then they buy goods and they come and sell, even if they have to top up the cedis to buy the dollar to be able to get the same number of quantity of goods, it should not be.
Who determines that band? Aren't you redefining the question? You are now saying, because Bawumia said we have arrested the falling cedi. That's what I mean. If you say you've arrested something that's falling and you've locked the key and given it to the IGP, how can the thing still be falling and you are now telling me that I understand we're in a floating exchange rate regime, and you are now saying that we should look at the band. Is it an IMF band? Who determines that band?
I'm trying to tell you that given our economy that has a currency that has been depreciating for ages, what is important is to slow the rate of depreciation first. That is the most important thing. It's just like a medical doctor who has been presented with a patient that has a very severe condition.
Okay.
The best you can do is to stabilize the situation. If you don't do that and you allow it to escalate the way it used to be, and that is why I'm quite confident that given the trend of depreciation, we are seeing a slower rate of depreciation than an increasing rate of depreciation.
But it's still trending upwards.
No, but you see,
it's still trending upwards.
It's trending upwards because it was brought down to a certain level, and now it's trying to adjust.
It was brought down to a certain level by the normal remedy. You go for Eurobond. So if you look at the graph I showed at the initial part of the program, when you bring in dollars, it artificially propels the cedi. It's not a long-term solution. So there's a temporary relief for the currency, which is why, look at it on the screen. February 2017, you appreciated slightly. February 2018, you appreciated slightly. Once the dollar finishes, the normal trend continues, which means that your solution has been the same solution. Because the asset taker as well, they go for bond, they go and borrow money, pump it into the economy, temporarily we have relief. How different is that from your solution?
Granted that the solutions are the same, the effects have not been the same.
The trend is the same. I'm just showing you the trend.
That, granted that the solutions have been the same as you proposed, the effects have not been the same. The difference in the effect is that the rate of depreciation has been slower this time.
Is that what you promised?
No, but you see,
when you say, I mean, you see, I want to, you see, I don't want to belabor the point. When you, I have another statement from your Dr. Bawumia, which I want
that
to
he said there would never be a depreciation.
That's not what I'm saying.
Exactly.
You see, this is Bawumia, page 24 of his 2016 speech. Under this government's economic management, the Ghana Cedi has obtained the dubious distinction of being one of the worst performing currencies in the world. All right?
That was true.
Hold on. Now, look at his evidence. The cedi has depreciated from 1.2 to the dollar. He didn't use percentages. In 2009 to 3.95. Then he puts into brackets almost 4 to the dollar. Currently, figure 14. So he himself is using the exchange rate, not the rate of depreciation. He uses the beginning of the tenure of Mills Mahama, 2009, and as of September when he was speaking, or October, end of 2016ish, he was saying that it's 3.95, almost 4. Okay, so somebody can also say, when he took over management of the economy, in December 2016, 4.1, February 2017, 4.2. Now we are almost 8. So using that same analysis, then he says, I mean, I can read the whole thing to you. We don't have time for this. The point is that he's using the absolute rate and he's talking about the currency depreciation from the point somebody managed the economy to. And I'm saying at the time he took over the economy, somebody handed him 4.1.
Exactly.
He's taking it to 5.
So you are bringing two different regimes.
Yes.
And so if you want to compare, the best thing you can use to compare, because the absolute figures are not the same, is to use the percentages. That is why percentages are there. Talk about relative changes. That is the most important thing. And it is only when you strike the percentages that you will know that even though we are talking about depreciation in two regimes, they are not the same. It is important to draw that distinctive line. If you don't do that, we will just be engaging in an exercise of futility. Because if you don't do that, look, as we speak today, you may think that, because Ghana Cedi is depreciating, it's not good. Well, given the same conditions, the global contagion and all of that, look at the depreciation in other countries. Okay, I'm not saying that is the argument we should do. But it is important to know that the euro is depreciating against the dollar. The pound is depreciating against the dollar. The Argentinian peso is depreciating by 50%.
So now Argentina is now our comparator?
I've mentioned euro and I've mentioned power. Why are you just zero in?
I'm surprised you added Argentina.
I'm giving you this context for you to understand that it is not necessarily the cedi that has its value going down. But the US dollar.
At the time that he was doing those lectures, other currencies were also struggling against the dollar.
No, you can bring in that argument. But what is important is that whatever the depreciation was then, 31%, is not the same as 6% today. It is not.
I am saying that.
And that is why, if somebody has been able to reduce your rate of depreciation from a point of 31% to 6%, you don't just be ungrateful to that person to say that he hasn't done well. It means that given the chance, that person has what it takes to take you to a point where you experience zero depreciation. And then you can think of how to grow up. That is the most important. If you don't situate the argument within that context, you will just be comparing the nominal figures to, of course, at any point in time.
He used the nominal. You see, Doc, I'm reading from Dr. Bawumia's statement. I am not the one who introduced the concept of apps. He pointed to 1.2.
Exactly.
To make a political argument.
And that is.
And then he pointed to 3.9 into brackets, almost 4.
Yes, but
so if I also say you took, no, I'm saying, so I'm following his example.
Yeah.
So I'm saying you came at 4.1. And you are now 4.8, almost 5.
And so here you are comparing.
Just like he did.
Anywhere Dr. Bawumia tried to compare, he brought in the percentages. Anywhere in his addresses.
Well, in this particular exchange rate, page 24 and page 25.
He was speaking a particular, just one regime. He was not comparing.
Yes, and then he compared from 2000 to 2015.
Exactly.
He didn't use percentage, he just used the rate. So when he started, it was 1. He ended at 3.95.
Exactly.
And so we will start at 4 and end at 5.
Exactly.
So if he continues the graphs.
And even with that, you can do the difference without the percentages. 1 to 4, and then 4 to 4.8. They are not the same. The nominal figures from 1 to 4, the difference is 3.
So we are falling, but not as much.
That is the point. Nobody is saying it is not depreciated. You have to get it that way. It is. And like I've said, because of the structure of the economy, it's not something that is happening overnight. That is the first time the currency is depreciating. It has been. But the most important thing is that the best we can do for ourselves today as a country is to first think of how to reduce the rate. If you have a teacher and you are presented with a kid that goes to write exams, WASI, and scores 40%, and you have been able to use 1 year to make the person score, let's say, C, from F to C, the parent should not come and tell you that because the child did not get A, you are not doing well.
We'll take a short break.
It means you have been able to build the child's academic or mental faculty from one point to the other.
We'll take a short break. This is the point of view. My guest is Dr. Gideon Boako. We have tons and tons of your comments. We're trying to subject Dr. Bawumia's analysis of the economy to strict proof in relation to the exchange rate, and his spokesperson is taking us through his answers. When we come back, we will read some of your questions and take you back to town, because we hear from more business people talking about the economy. Don't go away.
Ever thought about where you'd really want to live or invest? Is it beautiful, modern, and sustainable? Is the architecture advanced with state-of-the-art facilities? What if I told you you could find it only 15 minutes away from Adenta? When your hard work pays off, you need to invest in the right place. High-quality real estate appreciates in value. But the value is not just your home. It is also the area that surrounds it. Good roads with safe speed limits, drainage for even the most punishing floods, and neighborhood planning that ensures your view will never change. You can also invest in the commercial, social, and mixed business spaces, as well as Apollonia Business Park. It's time to make your move to Apollonia City. Call or visit us today. Our payment plans are tailored for you. Visit www.apollonia.com.gh or call 0275-577-577.
Gentlemen, avançando, ninguém pode ficar parado. Essa loucura mexe.
Witness the twisted and tangled story of betrayal, greed, vengeance, and love in the award-winning Brazil Avenue. Carminia, a woman led by greed, gets rid of her husband, who is Rita's father, and sends Rita away to a filthy landfill. Rita finds love in Batata, but they are soon separated by adoption into different families, far away from each other. Many years later, all paths cross again, as Rita, now a renowned chef, seeks to pay back her stepmother for taking away her happiness as a child. It's a story of twists, turns, suspense, and thrilling action in Brazil Avenue. Brazil Avenue, coming soon only on City TV. Brazil Avenue.
Welcome back. This is The Point of View. We're talking to Dr. Gideon Boakun. He is the spokesperson of the Vice President. I'm going to take us quickly to town again. Payosemi Heriduku spoke to some business people earlier today, actually, about the exchange rate. Here are some comments.
As at close of day today, you could buy a dollar for 4 cedis 97 pesos at commercial banks. The rate, as quoted by some forex bureaus, could be higher, as much as 5 cedis to a dollar. The perennial issue has largely been blamed on Ghana's economic model, which is highly dependent on import. A situation Nana Yaokisi Nyame, who is a forex dealer at Republic Bank, says will require political commitment to reverse the trend.
The real situation is that we need to be able to improve on these forex sources so that it will be able to balance out this whole import, the balance of payments that comes about as a result of the massive imports that we have in the country. So once you have a situation where some work has been done, it's still ongoing, but more needs to be done to be able to beef up that aspect of our forex sources so that we can balance out the payments in terms of the demand for dollars against the supply of dollars that we have in the country.
City Business News' analysis show that cumulatively, the cedi depreciated by 26.12% in 2017. But between January and August the same year, the local currency depreciated by 2.02%. However, for the same period this year, the cedi depreciated by 1.59%. Meanwhile, responding to how the international market development have impacted the weak performance of the cedi, Nana Yaokisi Nyame said that the attractive interest rate would continue to repel investors from emerging markets, which will impact heavily on supply of dollars.
At the moment, you have the U.S. interest rates being hiked by the U.S. government, and so a lot of these offshore players have decided to exit the current markets to be able to invest outside. The implication of that is that there's a lot of demand for dollars because, mind you, when they come into the country, they bring dollars, which is exchanged into cedis for the placements. And in exiting, they would need to buy back those dollars to be able to take advantage of those foreign markets.
These Ghanaians are obviously not left out on the impact of the cedi's free fall.
The dollar rate has risen. So definitely the price of the aluminium profile, let's say previously I would sell it 100 Ghana, maybe 200 Ghana, which will affect the people of the nation. The local currencies is always, it's not stable. So most of the times it creates a lot of problems with the businessmen and then the Ghanaian as a whole. So what I'm suggesting the government to do is that always when we produce our local products, they should add some value to it so that when they export it, we can get something so that we will use it profitable and then in our local industry centers, because our local industries are not performing.
For now, it is anticipated that the Yuletide may trigger another round of depreciation if the central bank fails to tame the situation with robust measures.
So the market is always the altar you go to, right? So these are ordinary Ghanaians. So a couple of things I want to point out to you. So you said that when it comes to the exchange rate, the rate of depreciation and the inflation rate, we should look at it very closely.
Ideally.
Yes. Yeah. So if the depreciation rate is higher than inflation, you have a problem. Good. Inflation is 9%, right?
9.8.
9.8%. Good. So it's almost going to double digit now. It's no longer, you're no longer excited to have single digit inflation. Depending on which figure I use, if you use 4.9 or even 5, then your exchange rate would be 10.3% depreciation compared to last year. So my point is that if the trend continues, very soon you are going to have your exchange rate depreciation cross your inflation rate. The exact situation you and Doc pointed out that meant your fundamentals were weak. Because as at now, you can say if you use 4.7 to calculate it, your exchange rate depreciation is 7%. But I'm saying that some other people can calculate and tell you that your exchange rate is actually now depreciating at a higher rate than your inflation rate.
Yeah,
you follow me?
I get bits of it, but the most important thing is that, yes, ideally you would have to compare the rate of the currency depreciation to the inflation. That's what economic principles suggest. But what is important is that if you are crossing, you see, it becomes abnormal when you cross, and that is why every economist will give you a certain band. Even inflation targeting, we say 8 plus or minus 2%. You understand? That is the optimal inflation that has been estimated for this country. And so even if your rate of depreciation is exceeding your rate of inflation, it should not be that much. The difference should not be that huge. And that is where, when it happens like that, we need to put it within that particular context and analyze. And I shared, as at the time Dr. Bawumia was speaking about some of this, every economist, everybody who likes analyzing data will not understand. Why should I have an inflation of, let's say, 19% or 20% and my currency depreciating by 31%? The spread, the difference is huge. A difference of about 10. Not normal. You need to go and re-examine your fundamentals today. As we speak, all the fundamentals are showing the right direction. You have inflation trending downwards. You have interest rate trending downwards. You have gross international results upticking. You have growth increasing from 3.7% to 8.5%. You have your trade balance getting to a surplus from a deficit of $2 billion in 2016 to a surplus of about $1.35 billion. So you can see that ideally, rightly, the economic fundamentals as are today are quite robust and strong.
Yet the exchange rate is still depreciating.
But you see,
and the rate of depreciation is increasing gradually.
The exchange rate is depreciation, yes, it is
and
true.
The rate is going up.
But for you to be able to
in spite of the fundamentals,
for you to be able to ascertain whether or not your fundamentals are having some anchorage effect on your currency would be determined by the rate at which you are depreciating. That is very important. Like I have said, the exchange rate management and hold up is not just by the fundamentals. There are other factors like our trade, the structure of the economy and all of that may come into play. But once you have strong fundamentals, even when you are depreciating, you will depreciate at a decreasing rate than depreciating at an increasing rate.
What's the most important difference this government has brought to managing the economy? Because these things about the things you mentioned, inflation rate, economic growth, deficit rate, everybody has heard it before. The structure of the economy is still the same, right?
Yeah, basically. I mean, as
you inherited
in the past. I mean,
2 years is too short to change the structure.
Yeah, it's a raw material based economy. We hardly add value to our produce, and therefore our trade positions, we are unable to do more exports relative to imports, and we're still a net importer. Even though we produce oil, we are net importers of oil. And all of these are fundamental structural economic issues
which you've not been able to change
over the years. I mean, all governments have been trying to do.
Because I remember Mahama told me this. I remember we had a session with Mahama in 2015 at the height of the 2014 depreciation. After that, in 2015, he said the same thing. He said we import too much.
Yeah, so that is why
you're also saying the same thing.
That is why the argument should not be based just on that. And so you look at the low-hanging fruits. Apart from these structural issues that are being with us from ages, that all governments are trying to mitigate and they have not been successful. What are the low-hanging fruits that you can? The ones that immediately, in the short term, medium term, you can have significant influence on. These are the fundamentals and all those issues that we're talking about. And that is why every government, no matter what, if you are unable to build a stable economy. You are just joking.
We spent 2.2 billion cedis last year importing food. I mean, this is the second year of the government. We've done planting for food and jobs. We're supposed to be doing one village, one dam. On the food side, I can understand if you import fixtures and fittings for houses. I can understand if you import tractors and cars, because you don't manufacture them here. But if you spend 2 billion on food in a year, rice, chicken, trophy,
maize, all of that,
it means you've not been able to. That's the low-hanging fruit for you. You're talking about low-hanging fruit?
The situation is not the same.
It's as low as they get, right?
The situation is not the same today. And that is why I'm saying that Ghanaians should have faith with this guy. The situation is not the same today. Today, the whole of this year, Ghana has never imported maize into this country. For the first time. This year, I'm saying it on record.
Well, we have the record from 2017.
As a result of the planting for food and jobs, 2018, we have not imported maize. So we are moving gradually, step by step. And when the Vice President went to the Ministry of Agriculture about 3 weeks or a month ago, that the ministry was able to put before government that because of the planting for food and jobs, 2018, we are not importing maize. That the Vice President threw a challenge that we should gravitate towards the point where we can declare as a country that we are no more importing chicken. Or even if we are importing, the rate of chicken imports has reduced.
The rate of chicken import has
reduced drastically. It is important to note that.
But I'm surprised. Chicken import, is it not just amount? Why are you using rate again?
Whatever amount. Our economists, I'm talking about rates. So
rate of chicken import, what percentage is that?
Whatever. No, but you can still have rates of imports. You can take the nominal import figure for some year and then the nominal import figure for this year, and you start a different multiplier by 100, you still get your rate. That is fair enough. But what is important is that we have been able to move a notch higher. That this year we are not importing maize. It means that if we go the same way we are going and all other things being equal, God blesses us with rains. Of course, we are trying to get to the point where we don't become dependent on natural rainfall, but use irrigation for farming and all of that. If you're able to do that, and the planting for food and jobs is able to achieve the success it has envisaged to achieve, it means that we may add another food crop that we are not going to import next year and the subsequent years. It also means that if the policies government have put in place, like the one district, one factory and all of that, are able to do so well, going forward we'll be able to add value to the raw materials that we produce, and that is going to support our trade position so well. Thankfully this year we've done so well by moving our trade accounts from a deficit to a surplus. It tells you that something good has begun happening, and therefore given the same trajectory we'll be able to get to the point where we wouldn't say yes we have solved all the problems, but gradually we've been able to completely solve some of the problems, or for some of them touch on them and reduce the effects that it has on the economy negative wise. And I think that is the sense and the vision that I see the president have.
Let me read some comments for you. Bernard, the only thing that has changed in Ghana's economy is 10 or Sankofa. All else remains same or getting worse. So essentially saying that you have had more resources from oil. That's what's boosting your fiscal space. And there's nothing else. Let's read more. Tony from Awushi says, good evening. Please ask the spokesperson for the vice president if he's satisfied with the economy now. Rex Osei-Sapon says, we do not have the local ideas and expertise in arresting the depreciation of the currency. The same solution has been adopted over decades. No new ideas. It's sad. We need local expertise that can arrest international falling currencies. Andy from Dowenya says, good evening, Bernard. Kindly tell Doc we all read economics one way or the other and you stop deceiving us. Bawumia use absolute figures and not percentages. The truth is, percentage will favor his boss, hence his stance. Bernard, the doctor is trying to defend the indefensible statement that have been made by his party member, but he really doesn't have the solution to our problems in the economy. Bernard, good evening. Ask Doc if they know the determinants of exchange rate is inflation, and in 2007 they said 1 cedi, $1. Interesting point. Hi Bernard, good evening. If what the spokesperson is saying is anything to go by, should our politicians continue using the rate of inflation and the depreciation of the cedi as electioneering campaign tools? Good. Let's read a few. All major currencies such as pounds, euro depreciate. It's about how you manage it in the context of such inflation. Bawumia never said there wouldn't be any depreciation, but then Please ask Doc if the exchange rate can ever drop to say 3 cedis per dollar or even below that. Bernard, good evening. The issue is it's about the quantum of depreciation and not just the depreciation. As a standalone, the government has done very well, but to be very honest, it is due to fiscal discipline and not necessarily strong fundamentals. Let's see how they sustain this when they start massive infrastructure projects. I want you to comment on that. Kweku's point is that is the discipline, not the fundamentals.
You see, it would be very wrong for me to sit here to suggest that the fundamentals are the only factors that account for the performance of the city, good or bad. It is not. It is not in isolation. It's a multifaceted factors that come together to either anchor a currency or cause the currency to fall down. You understand? And so the factors are varied. And sometimes you may have to even subject the data to proper empirical proof to determine the pass-through and the transmission channels. You understand? But as we speak today, because we have strong fundamentals, it will be difficult for you to write away the effect or the influence of the strong fundamentals on the performance of the currency as we have today. Of course, the fiscal prudence he's absolutely right. This government has made sure that it stays within its means, and then also to ensure fiscal prudence and not have the slippages that we had in the past. So all of these come together. There's a combined effect of all of these good pictures of the economy that have been able to help us to get to where we are today. Nobody is saying that the currency has not depreciated. I simply accept the fact that the currency has seen some level of depreciation. And I like the comment somebody made that the euro, even as we speak today, because of the strength of the US dollar, the euro has depreciated by about 3.52%, which is within also and reflective of their rate of inflation. The pound had depreciated by 4.29%. So the pound is falling. The euro is falling. The South African rand has depreciated by 19%. It is falling. You understand? The Indian rupee has depreciated by 11%.
But you know that all these economies you are pointing to, the fundamental difference is that because our economy is more import dependent than most of those economies, most of the things we wear and even eat are imported. So the effect of a depreciation in South Africa may be on inputs, but in this country the effect is stronger because almost everything is imported.
That is fine. That is perfect. And that is why, even though all others may be depreciating, we should try as much as possible, as somebody said, to make sure that our magnitude of depreciation is not huge.
So what's the debt to GDP ratio now? That's one of the biggest things as well. I remember Bawumia said we are a highly indebted middle income country. And at the Ghana Economic Forum, he said our debt to GDP is now 69.8. You can round that up to 70.
That is a recent.
And in fact, there's even contestations about how he calculated that, because he's using a different numerator and a different denominator. But that's not the point. The truth is that our debt to GDP ratio has been plus or minus 70% for the past 3 years.
So our debt to GDP ratio today, it's a fact. As the data shows, it's less than 70%.
69.8.
Exactly. And it's
based on your method of calculation.
It is not my method of calculation.
It's not the Bank of Ghana's method. Because if it's the Bank of Ghana's method, it will not be 69.8.
It's the Bank of Ghana that is giving this figure. It's the IMF method of calculation, the Bank of Ghana. I don't want to get into this because I remember when I was a student, I used to engage in these arguments with my professors, because the way the Bank of Ghana calculates the debt to GDP ratio is the same way the World Bank does it. And the same way the IMF does it.
Are you telling me that 69.8 debt to GDP ratio is anything to be proud of? Because we all know that the 70% is the threshold that beyond which once you get to, people start getting concerned.
Bernard.
And we've just finished an IMF program.
For me, we have to be proud of it today, given our circumstances, because this is the first time, if I remember very well, after 2007, that our debt to GDP ratio had declined. And so we have to be proud of it, whether you like it or not. The first
69.8%.
You see, you always have to cast your minds back to where you are coming from. I'm saying that this is the first time after 2007 that we are seeing a decline in the debt to GDP ratio. Why wouldn't you want to be proud of it? Your child has been going to school for 10 years. He's been scoring 60%. Now he's been able to score 65% because of a new teacher. You don't want to congratulate the teacher? Pat on the back of that teacher and urge him to keep on.
You arguably had more resources, because and look, it's very easy to say that the 10 fields within the period 2007 to 2016, the 10 fields are not producing oil. We have more oil from the 10 fields in addition to Jubilee. So if your debt to GDP is an average of 70%, you can't tell me that we should be proud of that.
That argument is dead on arrival.
No, it's not.
When first did we experience getting oil money?
2011, 2012, 2013.
We had oil money.
But that was the Jubilee. Jubilee is much smaller than the 10.
Listen, we had oil money, but our debt to the GDP ratio was still going up.
The highest it got to was 73.
This doesn't work. The good thing is that this government inherited a debt to GDP ratio that was over and above the sustainability threshold.
73.
And
now it's 70.
The government has been able to bring it back below the unsustainability threshold.
I interviewed Mr. Tekwe in this seat, and he said to me that the rate that he knows he left was not 73.
But it was what?
He said it was 70.
It can never be 70. This is what has been recorded. IMF, World Bank, Bank of Ghana.
Do you have the figure in front of you here?
If I should go, yeah, it should be part of this document.
It would be nice to see that independently. Whilst you do that, let me read a few more quick comments as we wrap up. Good evening. So does Dr. Bawumia and NPP government now know that their fundamentals are weak, as they have been exposed by the exchange rate? This is the highest calamity of incompetence. I think treasury bills should be reconsidered again to 20%. The current rate is too low, making people to invest in other instruments apart from the banks. Good evening, Bernard. I'm so sad at the sort of explanations we are getting from the MPP. Indeed, the fundamentals will expose you when you engage in lies and propaganda. Pontifa from Nungwa. Hi, Ben. Please ask Gideon if the incompetent GM has become their benchmark, Aziz in London. Hi, Bernard. Ghana is in fiscal distress, and such crisis is an opportunity for strategic and tailored reforms. Then there's a long message he adds at the end. Bernard, good evening. Tell the man to come to the ground and feel the heat. Then he would know if the fundamentals are strong. All right, as we wrap up, there's a general feeling that things are difficult in the system. People say there's no money. Is that something your fundamentals point to, or this is just anecdotal?
No, you see, I'm a Ghanaian, just as every other person. You go to the market, I also go to the market. As has been with us, the first thing that comes to mind is that as the day goes by, your expectations and my expectations also go up. And of course, if you have an economy in which all other things are not as you expect it to be, obviously when people begin to say that the economy is hard, you don't need to challenge that. And that has been, it's not just today that we are getting up to say that the economy is hard. But of course, the same people who are saying the economy is hard, as we have been saying all over, also read between the lines and know that, yes, this is our country. We were born as we are. We were not born on gold and silver, honey and milk flowing into our mouths. And so at any point in time, we try, if you have a government that tries to mitigate the situation and the sufferings of the people, as we move along, we contain it and then also hope that things get better. And that is the vision of government. That the president thinks that in spite of the fact that we may have some marginal depreciation on the currency that may affect prices on the market, in spite of the fact that we may have inflation going up, in spite of the fact that people go to the bank to secure loans and they are able to get it, and those who get it even get it at exorbitant price, even though the government is trying to bring it down. Let us also try to intervene in the hardships of the people and try to present them some offers and policies that will also help mitigate. So
when will things be better? When will people start feeling?
And that is why,
when will people start feeling in their pocket?
That is why, against the odds, government is trying to take away the burden of payment of senior high school fees from parents. That is why government is trying to make sure that our colleagues who want to go to nursing school have some stipend, teacher training allowance, and all those.
Everywhere.
Government is subsidizing fertilizer for farmers. Government is also making sure that the planting for food and jobs is going. Government is making sure that people who have completed school, universities and polytechnics and don't have job, let's create NAPCO for them. So
we are just reciting the ideas.
Yes, government understands
we run out of time.
Over time these challenges will be there
for people?
So let's mitigate the sufferings of the people. Okay. So alongside doing the policies that will ensure that the economy develops and become buoyant and robust, government is also making sure that it brings on board some social intervention policies to also ameliorate the problems of the people.
Thank you very much.
And then emancipate them economically. And I think that the government has started on a good note. We need to urge government and
to continue. Where is the key?
Which key?
The key that you lock the CD in.
Yeah, we've been able to contain the city. There's no two ways about that.
So you still have the key?
No, yes.
No, I just want to be sure.
Exactly. And it's important, Bernard, it is important to stress the point that nobody should try to underrate the fact that indeed this government has been able to hold the city
thank you very much.
And the dollar in
That
check.
was Dr. Gideon Boaku, spokesperson for Dr. Bawumia. He says they still have the key firmly in their pocket. The IGP is sitting on it. So the city is not going anywhere anytime soon. My name is Bernard Abde. Thank you for watching The Point of View. Stay with City TV. Good night.
The Point of View is sponsored by Apollonia City, Accra's new master plan city.
Guess who's back? Oh, back again. Shade. Okay, that wasn't clear.
No, she is back. She's the only one who's back.
And the man I'm here with, today's going to be a really good show because, you know, the flyers, the hottest, the sexy.
No. If you say the flyers, it makes it look weird because I'm not the flyer. I'm not trying to
I'm just saying you are.
I'm approaching.
Okay, he's approaching the finest, the hottest, the one, the only Philip Ashaw. Yeah, man, you deserve some accolades, man. You deserve some accolades, man.
Forget about the accolades.
God, man.
The money is more important.
And then we'll take more money.
What's up, AJ?
We're good.
This feels good.
It is
really nice.
I'm really excited.
Yeah, you should be.
Yeah.
I mean, considering the kind of weekend we had. I mean,
guys,
look, there is so much happening on the world of social media. It is madness. It's like beef galore. I'm not sure how they're going to season it at the end of the day, but there is beef galore. There is Shatawale and Stoneboy, and then I think someone put a pinch of what's his name?
Onga.
Yeah, inside it just to spice it up, and then